Instead of feeling empowered to take a little bit of a slowdown over the holidays, spend some time with family, their anxiety actually gets higher because so much of their worth and identity is trapped inside this title and this job that we have, that we can't take a step back for ourselves. And especially if you're working in a toxic work environment where your boss is very degrading, or you're dealing with a toxic culture, or you're incredibly overloaded beyond your boundaries and capacity, those things additionally add to this belief system that like, oh, well, I can't take a break. I can't disconnect. I can't do these things because then I'll be bad at my job. Then I won't be worthy of my title. Then I won't get the promotion that I want. Then I won't fill in the blank. Okay. I see this especially a lot of times in high performers, especially high performing women, but high performing men as well. When you're so used to operating at a high level, disconnecting feels like a loss of self. Welcome back to this episode of Secrets of the Career Game. So many people are trying to navigate a corporate world that is laden with secrets, cleverly hidden, and unspoken rules to a game that most employees don't even know that they're playing. On this podcast, we try to give you a peek behind the curtains and some tips and tricks to ultimately make you successful in your career and help you progress a little bit faster. Happy holidays, my lovelies. Today, we are talking about why it can be so hard to take a break and why it's important to be able to pause and restart and decompress within our careers. So get excited for a very fun episode that is very near and dear to my heart, as I am productivity obsessed and taking a break can be really challenging for me as well. So as we jump in today, I want you to first start by kind of doing a self-assessment of how well you disconnect and whether or not when you disconnect, you can relax fully. So a lot of this comes down to the work environments that we find ourselves in or the stress level of our jobs. So we hear all these studies of surgeons and doctors who have a hard time disconnecting because their job is so stressful or because they work 24-hour long shifts. And I feel like a lot of the time when we work a desk job, especially if you hang out with people from other generations, so often I hear, well, like, oh, you work from home, it's not that stressful. Or, oh, well, all you do is like, you only go into the office twice a week. When I was working, we had to go in 5 days a week in the snow, uphill, both ways, 7 to 7, whatever the argument is. And what I think happens is when we have a good paying job, especially if you are in something that is very white collar, meaning that you don't necessarily touch logistics or warehousing or go on site very often, and you work more in like a cubicle office setting, I feel like we can start to kind of discount some of our stress and some of our frustration because of the comfortable environment in which we get to work. But a lot of the time we don't talk about the stress of the mental load of carrying 10 different projects in your brain that all have different deliverables with different stakeholders and making sure they get done on time. We don't talk about the stress of having to jump from meeting to meeting without time to actively decompress. In fact, Harvard did a study. This would have been 2022, maybe 2022 or 2020. Yeah, would have been 2022. Harvard did a study where they were looking at the average corporate employee, and they saw that when employees had back-to-back meetings, their productivity, their mental acumen, their ability to focus all decreased exponentially. And so the advice was that there should be a 5-minute gap minimum between every meeting and at least time for 30-minute walks 3 times a day. And that you should have what's called dedicated focus time, where there are no meetings in your calendars to clear out tasks that need to be done within your day. And while I agree with all of those at a high level, the reality is that most working environments, especially corporate remote working environments, just don't operate like that. If you are, depending on your company culture, but especially if you are like middle management to upper management, you probably spend 80 to 90% of your day in meetings every single day. And that can be really, really exhausting. And even if you're not, if you're building more technical solutions, say you're a developer, you're an engineer, you're an analyst, if you're sitting at your desk trying to create these things all day and you're trying to produce, this weighs on us mentally, emotionally, physically. And so as we go into the end of the year, I talk a lot about use the end of the year to prep for 2025 goals. Use the end of the year to get ready for that promotion. And there's validity to all of that, just as there is validity to take some time, decompress, and disconnect. It is important for your mental health and your well-being. So if you're anything like me, I operated a very high stress level for a large portion of the year. Now I have a very high tolerance for stress. So where I've talked to many clients where my workload would be very much burnout potential, for me, it just feels very comfortable. I actually had a conversation with a guest whose episode will be coming out soon, Emily Foley, and we talked about how different stress levels kind of determine how much work you take on. And if you really love what you do, it's easier to work a little bit more. But I operated a very high stress level for a large percentage of my time. But I also have a very hard time decompressing. And so what I often tell people is like, I have two modes. I have full steam ahead, working 100 hours a week, absolutely crushing it between my corporate job and my business, doing all the things. And I have a potato. Potato is my recharge mode. Okay. And there is no in between. So my husband is a perfect example of somebody who can just like relax and then go do things. So he could be like cleaning the kitchen, but he could sit down for like 30, 45 minutes, chill, rest, get up, and then finish cleaning the kitchen. I am not capable of doing that. I must clean the entire kitchen and then I become potato. Okay. So when it comes to decompressing and enjoying the end of the year and kind of taking some space for yourself, the first step is really understanding how you operate. Okay. For me, the best kind of stress relief is doing things I enjoy that I normally don't have time to do. It doesn't mean sitting on my couch in potato status, watching the most recent Korean drama, which if you have not watched When the Phone Rings on Netflix, highly recommend. Okay. Total, not a plug, just I'm obsessed. I'm making my husband watch it too. Anywho, but for me, what is relaxing, what is self-care, what is recharging is going to get my nails done because I haven't had time in 4 weeks and they're really grown out. Don't look at them. Or getting to go to the gym and getting to spend enough time at the gym that I not only squeeze in my 45-minute workout, but I also have time to like sit in the sauna or swim or just relax, not feel like I have to go 100 miles an hour. It could mean going out to dinner with some friends or connecting with people that I don't have the opportunity to see very often, right? So this first step in being able to disconnect and really recharge is understanding yourself and what's going to fill your cup. Okay. I have many friends who like sitting in a dark room reading a book as their recharge, as my recharge, in evenings and weekends for sure. But I have other friends who what's recharging for them is going out to a party and getting to see everybody they know. Or it could be going shopping or going to explore or getting to do your hobby. Maybe you're really into dance or you take taekwondo or jujitsu. Like you first step in being able to really find your balance and enjoy this part of the year is understanding yourself and what you need. The second piece is carving out time for what is important by removing what is unimportant. Okay. The end of the year, a lot of people take time off this time of year. And yet, especially in the US, we feel a lot of stress of like, well, I'm offline, but I'm going to be checking my email. Or like, yes, I'm traveling far away to visit my family, but I'll be checking my email. I'll be on these few calls with these people. In the end, very little gets done between US Thanksgiving and the end of the year. Okay. Just very little gets done. And there's very few things that are so important they have to get done in that window, right? My team is very administrative heavy. There are contract renewals and invoice processing and PTO approvals. Those things have to get done in that time period. There's an administrative overhead to that. And some of you guys may work in positions where that's applicable to you. There's going to be some administrative work that you need to do. But for a vast majority of people, there's very little that needs to be done during your PTO. So don't stress over work. Repoint your focus towards doing these things that are going to recharge you, that are going to allow you to fill your cup, that are going to allow you to come back to work feeling refreshed in January. Because I promise you in January, it's going to pick up on all cylinders because every executive in the planet is like, new year, new me. Here's everything the company's doing. Okay. So take this time, kind of recharge. if you are in a position where you do have some administrative work, so I have some administration responsibilities, I told my team, I was like, I want you guys to completely disconnect. Don't check your emails. I will text you if something super important pops up, but I hope that I never have to text you. But I will be checking to give them that space. But even for myself, I have to carve a window for that. I can't be checking my emails all hours of the day while I'm on PTO. That's not healthy for me. Doesn't give me the space I need to recharge. But what I can do is Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 9 a.m. and at 5 p.m., log on, go through my emails, see if there's anything that's an emergency, and get it off my plate. I'm not checking in every day. I'm not available every hour. I am not on call, but I will make sure that nothing sits too long. Very little needs to be done within a 12-hour time frame, I promise. Okay. So figure out what your windows are if you do have some administrative work that has to happen this season, and kind of carve that time out and give yourself the structure to go enjoy yourself when you're not doing those things. The other piece that's really important when it comes to recharging towards the end of the year is a lot of the time we think because work is going to be slow, we're like, oh, I'll just stay online. Like nobody's going to be online anyways. Why use the PTO? I hear that all the time. And I used to use it all the time when I was more junior. Like I never took time off during Christmas because like nobody's going to be here. I can sit in my cubicle and scroll Instagram. I don't know. I was trying to think of something that you do in a cubicle. But if you're not using your PTO, part of your brain is still thinking about work. You are carrying the mental load of, but what if somebody emails me? Well, what if I get a ping? Well, what if somebody Teams messages me, hi, and then I have to respond because I am working? It is important to take time to recharge and disconnect. You need that. Okay. I'm going to harp on this message the whole episode because it is important. All right. If you work for a boss who says you cannot take time to disconnect and recharge, then you need to be saying, great, what about the first week of January? Find a trade-off, or think about maybe switching teams or careers next year, just a separate aside. Okay. So carve out your time for if you do need to do administrative work, and then carve out your time to disconnect. Understand yourself and what types of things are going to help you fill that cup, help you feel self-care, and then understand what to deprioritize. These three things are what come together to really help you prepare yourself for the next year. The other reason that I feel that people really struggle to disconnect is because we don't feel like it's okay for us to do nothing or to not contribute or to not make an impact. And a lot of this comes down to how we identify our self-worth. So if your self-worth is really, really closely tied with your job, the value that you bring to society and as an individual is tied to your career or to your title or to what your boss says in your annual review or whatever it is, if you are really, really connected to your title and your work as your identity, we start to crave productivity and we start to crave accolade. So if we're not being told we're good at our jobs, or if we're not feeling like we're good at our jobs, then what happens is we start to kind of crater because that identity is struggling. It doesn't feel supported by what we're doing. And so who are we if we're not working really hard? Who are we if we're not delivering results to the company? Who are we if we're not X title? And so a lot of time around this time of the year, I see clients and individuals that I work with who are really, really struggling to take that step back because they feel like they can't. Right? Instead of feeling empowered to take a little bit of a slowdown over the holidays, spend some time with family, their anxiety actually gets higher because so much of their worth and identity is trapped inside this title and this job that we have that we can't take a step back for ourselves. And especially if you're working in a toxic work environment where your boss is very degrading, or you're dealing with a toxic culture, or you're incredibly overloaded beyond your boundaries and capacity, those things additionally add to this belief system that like, oh, well, I can't take a break. I can't disconnect. I can't do these things because then I'll be bad at my job. Then I won't be worthy of my title. Then I won't get the promotion that I want. Then I won't fill in the blank. Okay. I see this especially a lot of times in high performers, especially high performing women, but high performing men as well. When you're so used to operating at a high level, disconnecting feels like a loss of self. So I've done other episodes about this. I'll continue to talk about it. Your worth should not be tied to your title, should not be tied to your job. I understand that it becomes that way. We spend most of our time at work, way more than I wish we did. And so it's very easy to get lost in that pitfall of like, oh, my job is me. It shouldn't be. Okay, you need to have interests and skills and things that you do that are not work related. Okay, I've talked about the book Worthy by Jamie Kern-Lima on my podcast before. It was recommended to me by my good friend Tiffany Human, and it is amazing. I highly recommend it. It is a great way of kind of ascertaining what are those deep-seated, deep-rooted beliefs that we internalize that then make us think we're not worthy of certain things. One of those things that I oftentimes believe I'm not worthy of is rest, because I feel like I have to produce in order to be worthy of love or affection or respect or fill in the blank, right? So highly recommend that book. If you've got some time over the holidays and you're like, well, now I don't know what to read because Kendall said I had to disconnect and read a book and I don't know what to read, Worthy by Jamie Kern-Lima. Okay, we'll tag it in the show notes. But the other thing that I feel like really ties into this is that we don't have hobbies anymore. Okay, so when you're growing up, you probably played a bunch of different sports. You're in soccer and gymnastics, or you are in art classes, or you play an instrument, or you're in choir, or you doodle. Pick a hobby, okay? When we're growing up, we have all kinds of differentiated hobbies and we have all kinds of different things we do. And a lot of this comes down to how school is structured, where school kind of artificially puts in these like home ec classes and these other interests that we get to learn. And when you're younger, I feel like we don't appreciate this. Like, oh, it's another class. It's another thing I have to do. But what it does is it gives us ways to disconnect where like our worth is not solely in academia, or our worth is not solely in a sport that we play, or our worth is not solely tied to a friendship that we have. We have lots of different interests. We chat with our friends at lunch. We play an instrument. We go to sports. We are in math club, fill in the blank, right? Yes, those were my hobbies in high school, in case you were curious. Not math club. We didn't have math club. We had orchestra club and honor society. Yeah. Historian. I was the historian. Okay. I have digressed. So as an adult, what happens though is we have kids and spouses and friends and work, full stop. And we're so busy that we don't have any hobbies anymore. And so what happens is to decompress, we either mindlessly scroll TikTok, guilty, or we don't decompress at all because work takes up so much of our life we have to do it, or we run from work to taking our kids to sports to spending time with our spouse and repeat and don't have any time for anything that actually fills us up and makes us feel like we're exploring new interests. So I'm going to challenge everybody listening to this episode. You should pick a hobby for 2025 and explore it. Okay. If you are multi-passionate or ADHD, okay, which is like me. If you're ADHD or multi-passionate, maybe you pick a hobby every quarter, okay? And you pick different things that you're going to be interested in, that you're going to spend some time on. But I want you to truly start to explore yourself outside of work. Now, I saw a really great TikTok video about how this woman said, if you're starting to take your self-care seriously, you cannot prioritize meditating, journaling, reading, working out, eating healthy, knitting, going to yoga. You cannot do all of it. If you try to do all of the self-care things, you're just going to burn out of doing self-care, okay, which is the antithesis of what we're trying to do here. But it is important for us to have something that we do that helps us disconnect. So many of you guys who have followed me for a while know this, but in 2023 for the first time, I competed for Mrs. Colorado. I'd never done a pageant before. I was in my mid-30s and had never even stepped on a stage. And multiple people would come to me and said, hey, I feel like you'd really enjoy this. You should try it. And I did. I thought I'd be a one and done. But I got involved in my community and I loved going on to these community events and raising awareness and getting to connect with all these nonprofits. And I got to focus on my fitness and my health as a part of that. And I got to wear cute clothes and get dressed up and do my makeup and do all the fun things that like I had frankly kind of deprioritized since becoming a mom. And I fell in love with like the sport of doing pageantry. And I made amazing friends who I talked to every single day. And it just became such a great space for me. So my hobby is that. It involves fitness and health. It involves community involvement and volunteering, and it involves friendships and like building these connections with these other incredible women across my state. And I love it. That is my hobby. Now, at some point that's going to end, either because I win or because it's run its course. And while pageantry will probably always be part of my life now, it's like not a number one priority. But that for me is how I disconnect. And there's a lot of different ways that manifests, but that is my hobby, right? That and reading a bunch of books. Okay. So you need something that's going to take your focus away, right? That's going to give you something else to do. That's going to make you excited when you get off work because you get to go to your new dance class, or you get to go take jujitsu, or you get to go ice skating. And you don't have to be good at it. You don't have to be good at your hobby. You just have to have one. Okay. And it has to be something that brings you joy. I had one client who really struggled with this. We talked about how I want you to have a hobby. I want you to have a way to disconnect. And they were like, but there's nothing I enjoy doing. Like I am my job. And it ended up being video games. And he's like, this is great. I haven't played a video game since high school. Started playing video games again. And like, I love it. I forgot how much I enjoyed it. Talking to other people, getting to interact, getting to play a game. My mind gets to work, but it's also decompressing. Find a hobby. Okay. I know the internet, I feel like now it's more socially acceptable, but like used to be like Lego people. It's like, oh, Lego people, or like Disney adults, like pick a niche. Okay. Somebody on the internet's going to hate on them. I don't care. But you need to have something that interests you. And in fact, this is a quick aside, but I think it's funny. So I am a Taurus, and I'm not super into like the astrological stuff. I'm going to be honest, but everything I see about a Taurus talks about how they love to eat, and like food is my passion. I love food. I love eating it. I love making it. I love going to restaurants. Food is me. And I was joking with my husband. I was like, I think I'm going to start an Instagram in 2025 where I'm like, I'm just going to go eat places, put it on Insta. And I don't care if I have like 2 followers. It's about the fact that like I really enjoy eating food, and I'm going to eat food. I'm going to post on the internet. It's fine. Okay. Big hobby. Doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to be like training to be a professional skydiver. Okay. But I think one of the reasons we get really depressed this time of year is we don't have enough human connection. We're not spending time with friends or family, and we just feel alone. It is a hard time of the year to be alone. So make new friends, make new connections, go into the office. If you have an office and you've been working remote and you're feeling disconnected, like put yourself out there with people. I feel like is really important. Even if you're an introvert, I'm not saying go talk to 100 people, but there is something about like being in proximity of other people and having that community. And the second reason is that our worth is tied to our job, and we just cannot disconnect. So find other things. Divert your attention and find passion in that. A lot of the time, I feel like the term rest gets a bad rep because we think rest means lazy. Rest means sitting on the couch. Rest means binging 12 seasons of Netflix episodes. I just finished The Walking Dead. It was terrible, by the way. Like the first 2 seasons, awesome. With Walking Dead, if you worked on The Walking Dead final 2 seasons, I'm mad at you. That's not related. But rest gets a bad rep because we equate it with not doing anything valuable. But the reality is that rest is something that gives you energy and helps you recover from stress. Rest can be playing with your kids. Rest can be doing your hobby. Rest can be going for a jog. Rest does not mean sedentary. It does not mean lazy. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As I think about the last few years, I am so thankful for this amazing community where I get to interact with you guys. I get to share my thoughts. You guys tune into my podcast every week, or you check out my Instagram. And I love what we're building here. But it is my responsibility to show you guys both sides of the coin. How to work, how to communicate, how to be successful, and then how to recharge, how to rest, how to find your peace, and how to determine what success looks like in a balanced way. You guys need both, and so do I. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope you guys have an amazing holiday season in 2024 and that you're set up for success in 2025. But as always, if you like today's episode, go ahead and leave us 5 stars. If you're interested in coaching, go ahead and click the link below in the show notes. We only have 8 spots left for the rest of 2024, so we are running out of room. Otherwise, tune back in next week and we'll have another great episode for you.